Welcome to Nerd Alert, your ultimate destination for all things nerdy. Dive into the pixelated realms and cosmic wonders as we embark on a journey through the ever-expanding universe of nerdom. I'm Tyler, and joining me today is Max and Peter, and together, we're your guides through the labyrinth of video game galaxies, TV show twist, movie marvels, and literary odysseys. In this digital haven for all things nerdy, we aim to bring you the latest and greatest in the world of video games. From console classics to cutting-edge releases, our discussions cover it all. But that's just the tip of the D20. We're not stopping there. Nerd Alert is your one-stop shop for all the pop culture phenomena that makes your inner geek rejoice. Whether you're a seasoned gamer, a movie buff, an avid reader, or just someone who appreciates the art of the nerdy, we've got you covered. Expect insightful reviews and passionate conversations as we dissect and celebrate the intricacies of our favorite realms. So buckle up, level up, and get ready to be immersed in the world where fantasy meets reality. This is Nerd Alert. All right, welcome everyone to the Nerd Alert podcast. My name is Tyler, and I'm joined by my brothers here. I got Max with me.
Hello.
And I also have Peter with me.
Everyone.
So hopefully if you are the audio-only listeners, that was maybe a little bit better way to tell who we all are. Apologize for the last one. We just started talking. And there was also, unfortunately, no video because I forgot to upload the video portion. So... hello, welcome. This is us. Welcome to another Nerd Alert podcast. Episode, anyone know?
Oh, goodness. I want to say...
Above 20?
Above 20?
Yeah, 23.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's say 20. Did you just check?
No, but that's
okay.
my guess.
Hey, welcome to podcast number 23, the Nerd Alert podcast. Brought to you by Calling All Nerds. We got a good one in store. Now normally we try to do a lot of like news-based stuff on the podcast. But I will say, I think as of the recent, maybe like one or two podcasts, it's been a little bit more experience-based. And this one follows the same suit. We got a couple little news bits that I'll get into here in a second, but primarily we're actually just talking about our experiences playing the games we've been playing. Max and Peter have been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'll be kind of interviewing them in a way, and then I have been playing Dragons Dogma 2. It'll probably be kind of like the same with them asking me questions. And before we get into everything, do want to remind everybody, if you are a audio or video listener onto the podcast, make sure to give us the thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, rate us on Spotify and Apple. I don't know what's going on with Google anymore. I keep getting a bunch of emails that like Google Podcast doesn't exist anymore. So because I think Google Podcast is now on YouTube. I don't know. It's really weird. So I know we're on everything that we possibly can be. So again, give us the 5 stars, give us the thumbs up, subscribe, whatever the things are that are possible. But yeah, just a little bit of that. And with that being said, I guess we'll jump in. So Larian Studios, a studio that we have talked highly about. If you are a new listener or an old listener, you know that me personally, I have played the Divinity Original Sin games, I don't know, combined 500 plus hours in all the times that I've been playing those games. Larian Studios is an amazing just studio in general. And I'm not sure, Max, did you get Baldur's Gate 3?
I have not yet. I initially was holding off until the definitive edition eventually came out, but based on the news that they broke, it doesn't sound like we're going to get any DLC or any well, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yes, I plan to buy it when it goes on sale.
Okay, cool.
That I can experience it.
So Peter and myself, Peter's played Baldur's Gate 3, correct?
Oh yeah.
And dabbled a little bit in Divinity. I know he's watched me play Divinity because he's maybe played it himself. But so we're decently versed in the Larian Studio. I don't know what we'd say it, but anyways. So the big news is that they are a few things. They are stepping down and stepping away from Baldur's Gate as an IP, as well as Baldur's Gate 3. They are no longer doing any DLC for it, and they have officially given back I want to say the D&D rights to Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
Because, and I don't have the article, I forget to like pull it up right away if somebody maybe wants to grab it real quickly. I'll just I'll just try to briefly summarize it. Maybe if Max finds it, he can say like the words that the studio lead was saying. But essentially, they have given back the D&D rights to Wizards of the Coast, who are the people who write all the D&D books, all that kind of jazz. And they actually want to step away, I believe, from the fantasy stuff. Now I know they're working on a new Divinity game, so that might be like Divinity 3 might be like their last kind of fantasy like game. But it sounded like to me, if I remember, that they are wanting to just not only like step away from D&D, but like fantasy in general. And the speculation right now, or at least what people really hope that means for Larian, is that maybe they're going to step into like the cyberpunk or like sci-fi realm a little bit more. I would assume they're still going to do like RPGs and that whole thing, but that is the big news. So Baldur's Gate 3 sold millions upon millions of copies. It had an amazing presence in the world of gaming for months and months, and obviously still does well. And yeah, big news. No DLC. They're done. They're stepping away. So initial thoughts, maybe we can start with Peter. Peter, you played Baldur's Gate 3. How does that make you feel knowing no DLC, knowing that Larian Studios will never make a Baldur's Gate 4? Like, what's kind of that initial thought process there?
I'm not too mad about it or sad or whatever. I think it's a good direction. Just one D&D game that I played, being Baldur's Gate 3, was enough for me, I feel like. And
it was a massive game.
By the end of it, I was wanting more. But only in thinking that it would happen a very long time from now. And it's been a while since I played it, and I still am pretty good, thinking of all the things I went through in it. And really,
like
the only
pretty
thing,
good, like don't want to pick it back up again, kind of a thing. That what you mean?
Well, I mean, I would play it a little bit again, like the game that it was, but I don't think I wouldn't have a huge demand for a brand new story and a whole new set of characters within the same engine, within the same
makes sense
D&D universe.
Yeah.
And so I think that I guess my hope would be that if they were to come out with another game and something completely different, I know you said it sounds like they're not going to do fantasy, and I kind of hope it doesn't mean that they're going to go for sci-fi either, because we have a lot of that, and usually like fantasy and sci-fi goes pretty hand in hand. Like if you're not doing fantasy, you might be doing sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like especially when it comes to what's the type of game it is again? A
Baldur's
RTS?
Well, it's a
or not
CRPG, computer
CRPG,
RPG.
that type of game, and top down and all that. That whole top down aspect. A lot of sci-fi games are like that. So I don't know what they would do next, but it is exciting to kind of speculate on that.
Yeah,
especially seeing what they're capable of.
Yes,
it's incredible. So whatever they're going to make is going to be amazing. And I guess I always heard that they were a little limited in terms of how much they could do with introducing more D&D elements. Like the whole combat system gets way too complicated past like a certain level or something like that.
Yeah, very true. Well, in true D&D, I think like max level, you legit get like a skill that like, I think it's called like wish, and you can wish for anything to happen. And Larian was like, we don't know how to program that. Like there's no way to program wish.
Now, it would be funny if they just I guess this is more up to the modders, but like if modders took the engine and made like a funny game where they implemented stuff like those silly like wish execution crazy mechanics and stuff like that, along with a new story. So I'm sure whatever they've left behind as a legacy will be in good hands with all the modding community and everything, and I'm sure there will always be the ability to continue what they've created.
Yeah.
With DnD and
Yeah, that is a good point. I will say I go against the grain there. I really want them to do sci-fi. I like Wastelanders a lot. That's a really good alternative like CRPG. Wastelanders 3 was really good. And I want them to do something like Wastelanders, or like the original Fallout game was actually a CRPG. Those are really cool. Fallout 1, I want to say Fallout 2. And then so I actually am pro team sci-fi, but I also like sci-fi more than fantasy anyways. But I understand. I can see where you just like do something different. Maybe they'll do a rhythm game. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see. RPG rhythm game. But yeah, so Max, as someone who hasn't dove into Larian Studio games themselves, but obviously know them, and like you said, you were waiting to get the definitive edition on, I assume, the PS5 would be where you'd be getting it. So how do you kind of feel about this whole thing? Do you feel like, darn, won't be able to do what I was hoping to do, and now it's going to be limited?
No, I don't feel that way at all. If anything, I'm very... I love Larian's candor in regards to the decision that they made. I believe I had read somewhere that they actually were in the process of creating DLC for Baldur's Gate 3, but that the team just wasn't feeling it, and so they were just like, all right, scrap it, we're just going to move on, and I did pull up an article from Polygon just as we were talking about it, and I always can't pronounce the last name of the guy from Larian. It's Link or whatever.
Yeah.
He said, Larian, that's not what we're made for. That's literally the opposite of what Larian is about. We want to do big new things. We don't want to rehash the thing that we've done already. And so that was in regards to the question when he was being interviewed of why are they stepping away from Baldur's Gate 3? Why are they giving back the rights to DnD, to Wizards of the Coast? And I commend them for it, honestly. I think that it's very easy for studios to kind of get into a groove of just sequel after sequel for a massive IP that's incredibly successful. And honestly, Larian would be incredibly successful if they continued to make these Baldur's Gate games or Divinity games. I think that Baldur's Gate 3 really kind of launched them into a new stratosphere when it comes to their presence in the gaming industry. This was a game that really no one really saw initially making huge waves, and it just came out of nowhere and catapulted one game of the year in multiple outlets. And they really kind of set the bar in a way of how to do a proper RPG, and what is possible through those types of games. I love that they're moving away from it, though, mainly because creating games nowadays is it takes a long time. I think they worked on Baldur's Gate. I think they worked on Baldur's Gate 3 for 10 years or something like that.
It was something pretty crazy of what they've been doing. Because they halted their Divinity 3 production because they were able to successfully get Baldur's Gate.
Right. Once they moved that. And if I were them, I wouldn't want to spend another 10 years making a sequel to a near perfect game in a lot of people's minds. And so it's I wish more studios would do this, of providing or releasing kind of a one-off, right? Of this is the full story. This is the experience that we want to share with the world. You loved it. Great. We're going to go now and do something new. And I think that Larian kind of has a lot more freedom than a lot of companies out there, because I think I could be wrong here. They're not owned by Sony or by Microsoft, and so they're
still solo.
Yeah, they're solo. They're independent, and so they have that freedom to choose that they want to do that. Whereas studios like Naughty Dog or Bungie or something
anyone under Microsoft,
anyone under Microsoft, you really are kind of regulated to continue with your IPs that produce the most revenue, and so like it's like this is what you need to do. Not a lot of companies out there outside of, I would say, Larian is one of the few. CD Projekt Red, Rockstar, Naughty Dog, those companies, those studios, they have kind of the flack and the fame to really kind of determine what they want to do. Overheads be damned, like they can just kind of make that decision. A lot of companies don't have that ability. And I think it's a breath of fresh air. Honestly, I'm really excited. I honestly would love to see them do something in sci-fi as well. I feel like over the past 5 years, we've really to something that I really love. We've kind of reached a new golden age of fantasy, both in TV and in video games. Like it's really reached a new height. And I love that as a fantasy lover, but I kind of want that same thing now for the sci-fi realm. And really, steampunk is something that I really love as well. So that was something I was thinking about. I was like, man,
cool.
If they did like some sort of like steampunk game, I would jump on that like nobody's business. Like, I love those like weird oddity kind of games, and so that'd be fun if they did something like that.
I think you do bring up a good point too. Of like, I will say there as like in the way of like devil's advocate, like it doesn't always work, right? You have like the Call of Duties and they like trade off different people all the time, and like they're always like so hit or miss. And now, I mean, I guess technically they just shift between like 2 or 3 people, but like still they try to like make someone different, make another game. And I do think it messes with the cohesion a little bit. So like whatever Baldur's Gate 4 is going to look like, whatever Baldur's Gate 5 looks like it's going to be different, and hopefully it still means that it's good. So like part of me is sad about that in a way, because 1 and 2 are really good. They're made by the same person. They're super old. They're like old school. I want to say they're like from the 90s. And so like the difference is like vast. But like having the consistency is nice. I mean, I think it's why I've liked the Divinity games. Like only Larian touches Divinity. So it makes them have like that essence of it.
That's great.
But yeah, I mean, when you're able to do other projects, like they made a great game. Baldur's Gate 3 was incredible, and they just get to leave it at that. Like, as far as like it might, if we look at the span of Baldur's Gate throughout the years, there's probably gonna be some goods and some bads, some goods and some bads. And like, hey, great for Larian that they were on one of the good side, and that's really all that, that's what like matters the most. So yeah, I think it can go either way. Sometimes it's really nice when people leave, and sometimes it's nice when it stays consistent. But also not always. I mean, let's take Pokemon for example. Pokemon goes through ups and downs constantly on like good and bad, good and bad, good and bad, right? And it's always been the same person, the same company doing obviously different developers, but like it's been the same company kind of leading it. And so when you do the same game forever, you're gonna have a lot of ups and downs. And I don't know, maybe even just like, I'll just say for lack of better terms, from a fun perspective, like, is it fun always just working on the same thing? I don't know. Maybe that's what makes it like a little boring for some people, and maybe that's why they fluctuate so much. But I mean, yeah, either way, Larian Studios still at the end of the day is a good company. I think I also want cyberpunk or sci-fi because my cyberpunk experience was kind of poop. And outside of that, I haven't played a sci-fi game, I don't think, since. So I think it's also why I want sci-fi, because I really am still trying to like feel that itch. and it just hasn't happened because there hasn't been a sci-fi game that I've just been like, yes, I want to play that.
Well,
I think we were hoping Starfield would be that, and it ended up not.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you guys know about all the different subgenres of steampunk? There's like solar punk, which is a mix between kind of like sustainable environment and steampunk. There's clock punk. There's like biopunk, diesel punk.
Diesel punk.
Sounds like
get your Ford F-350 sponsored by Diesel Punk.
Honestly, I saw solar punk come up as like a concept recently from it was like an article talking about Studio Ghibli or something, and it was such a cool environment concept. It was like all this like technology, like it almost looks like the whole Da Vinci invention era, like where it's sort of like inventions, but like sustainable environments and like a ton of like nature and stuff.
Very cool.
You know?
Love it.
Very neat. All right. Well, our next topic that I have at least written on my fun little sticky note here, it is around a 2024 Game Developers Conference that NVIDIA had going on. So, according to TechSpot here, a guy named Cal. Hello, Cal. Monday, this is March 19th, by the way, so it's been a little while. So Game Developers Conference opening with companies showcasing their AI-driven game creations. Unity teased a collaboration with the conversational AI startup Conv AI, and NVIDIA announced a slew of projects that utilizes its meta-human and other AI technologies. So the big thing here was how I want to say NVIDIA was just showcasing like how people were being like rendered like on the fly, and how faces were being rendered like on the fly and like reacting like to just the person like walking up. And the idea behind all this is just the vast expansion of what this could mean. Things such as AI being able to have like dynamic conversations with each other. You're walking around a town and you just see an NPC, and maybe randomly an NPC just punches the other one. And then next thing you know, like all the conversation that's happening right there is just being generated like right there in front of you. And this, what I'm about to kind of summarize, is all just like a vast amount of ideas that I've just read on Reddit and like other things like that, right? Things such as when you are experiencing your video game and you're chatting with an NPC, people are like, you know, this could maybe be our gateway into voice-activated RPGs, where you use your microphone and you just talk to the AI, and the AI can hear what you're saying and interpret it. Accidentally lost Max. Hopefully his video feed will be here in a second.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. You made me think of Hey You Pikachu.
I was just turning off the camera to turn on the light in the room.
So the being able to, you know, walk into a town and say, "Hello, NPC, I am looking for Brother Mike. Where is he?" And it's like, well, I don't know where Mike is, but maybe if you walk over here to Jeff might know where Mike is. I think he hangs out with him on the other day. And like, so maybe this segues into this. All this crazy stuff was just talked because this was like a decent, like, you know, Unreal Engine 5 was talked about. NVIDIA, obviously being the graphics card company, they were talking about their whole thing with the whole GeForce experience and all that kind of jazz. Unity teasing like their conversation AI was a big piece of this, because like having the conversation pieces be artificially developed on the fly, like, would this mean like unique game experiences for a lot of people? Like, there would be no more like structured kind of like conversation. I mean, I would assume like main storylines and stuff would still have some built-in story, right? And that type of thing. But a lot of your probably like third party, off party kind of like conversations with the world would just be whatever. And like, yeah. So that was the big thing that they were talking about, especially like, I think they focused a lot on facial expressions and how those were being generated. That's always been kind of like a hard thing for developers to do. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack. I would say that like, if you're a listener right now and you are interested, I know I didn't give you the best explanation of it. There is like a YouTube video that you can see the entire like showcase of it. It is pretty interesting. And I guess like the thing that it's funny. One of the top comments is, "Can't wait to shoot their limbs off." That'd be very interesting to see how people are going to react to like when we're doing harmful things to them in RPGs. Anyways, the questions that I wanted to bring up is like, how do you all feel that like, how are we probably already seeing AI in video games, if at all? And where do you see like some cool stuff happening with AI, and where do you see some bad stuff happening with AI? So I start with Peter first. So I'm gonna shift over to Max. So Max, kind of what's your pros and cons, let's just say, of what you feel like AI could bring for the video game world?
So, gosh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard anything about that, but that's really cool. I'll start with my pros. I think that, like we were just talking about with Larian, I think that what the gaming industry is really struggling with right now is the amount of time it takes to create a video game, especially as we head into like Unreal Engine 5 and just, the tech industry, the way that games can be created is constantly evolving year by year, faster and faster. And games take a long time to make, and by the time they come out, whatever that game was about or was supposed to be could already be outdated, or it could be something that just isn't successful, and then that studio gets foreclosed or something like that because they didn't make the sales that they needed to make. I mean, it's a awful tale that we're constantly hearing about layoffs this year across the gaming industry, which is really hard to hear. But I think a lot of that is around these studios releasing these multi-million-dollar budget games that are just not getting out fast enough, not meeting financial deadlines. And I think that as a pro, in some ways, AI can assist with that length of time that it takes to create a game.
Yeah.
I could be speaking out of my butt a little bit, but like just with some of the things that you mentioned to me just now of that article, it sounds like it could really lighten the load of a lot of the build of games with AI if done correctly. And I want to be careful about that, pro, because I don't want AI to ever eliminate human jobs. I know that is kind of like a foregone conclusion, but like for me, there can be pros there. There can be things that AI can do to really help streamline the amount of time that it takes to create a game, which would be very beneficial for everyone. But doing that without sacrificing the human creativity of it. For me, that's key when it comes to any conversation with AI. Is I never want to live in a world where AI has just kind of created something all on its own without any kind of human creativity involved, and it's just this like soulless thing that just exists. It's like you already hear those horror stories in some way, but as long as that human creativity aspect isn't extinguished, I'm open to it. Because honestly, AI is here to stay. I mean, it's something that we see in all industries at this point. When it comes to the cons, that kind of leads into human creativity as well. For me, the idea that we can use AI to create random generated like NPC conversations that are natural conversations, I think that there is that's fascinating to me. I actually don't hate that idea, but there comes that thought process of, okay, what would this only be able to be done in a specific kind of game? With a lot of the games that we have out there is a structure and an overarching like narrative element to them. No, I don't want to say narrative element, but like there's a backbone to most games that we play that like you can't really be too crazy with that, otherwise the whole thing falls apart in terms of its like realism in its world. I think there are many types of games that could be beneficial in. My fear is that it just kind of sucks out the human creativity of it and just kind of creates these types of scenarios that don't really mesh well with the kind of game that you're trying to create. But what do I know? I don't know anything about AI. So, but I would say overall, those are my general thoughts. I think that there's a lot of great potential there to help streamline the processes, but also I worry about the sacrifice of the human creativity part.
Yeah, I would say that with that piece that you just mentioned, the human creativity, I think I'm a little scared when the time comes that we flip what we think about AI. What I mean by that is when we watch a media, like I just watched the movie Wish the other day and it stunk. Yep. The storyline was terrible. And Max made the comment of, oh, I read that. It felt like ChatGPT wrote the story, right? In the recent Pokemon game, I want to say some of the artwork of some of the Pokemon was talked about how like, maybe not Pokemon, the other What was the game? Pal World. People were like, oh, this was just like AI generated things, right? Right now, we kind of associate bad stuff to AI, right? Like you see an image, like they don't really do text all that well right now, like the AI image stuff. Hey, full disclosure, our Calling All Nerds logo right now, because we haven't like gotten a good one, it's missing an L. AI didn't do the L right. It's fine. It gets the job done for what we need. But typically speaking, we right now associate, oh, that was kind of subpar. I bet it was made by AI. I'm a little afraid of when that flips, when we actually can't tell the difference. And that part, I'm like, oh man, wonder what it's going to be like then in this world.
You know what?
Real quick,
you know what explored that concept?
Does our logo say "Calling All Nerds"?
Oh, it says "Calling All Nerds." All right,
calling all nerds.
But if you don't look at it that long, you don't notice it. So it is there until we can find someone to actually do a logo for us.
What a perfect example.
Yeah, I mean, God. But that's what we associate right now with AI. Yeah. So hand the mic off to you, Peach. What's your kind of call or say on all this pros and cons and whatnot?
I was just going to say to your point real quick about that fear about when we might not be able to distinguish between it. Part of me believes that, a strong part of me believes that I don't think there'll ever be a time where somebody or a majority out there will be able to say this is AI. But it is scary to think about if it wasn't that case. And then it made me think of a game, Detroit Become Human, of which I played through like a majority of it. Also really likes to explore that concept. There's even a part in the game, I think it's been out for long enough to say this, where it's not a spoiler. But spoiler alert.
Skip ahead like 40 seconds.
40 seconds.
Yeah. There's like a part where the AI, I don't know what they called them, but cyborg, or just the person that's like is completely computer generated, but walks around like a human. He picks up a paintbrush in like an artist's garage, and the artist like asks him to create something on the painting, and then the game's trying to make it look like, oh look, this he came up with something so human-like. It almost like doesn't seem like it's AI, and like even the artist was like well done, you're learning, and I guess that's more the concept of like machine learning and stuff like that. But it is something that a lot of people are thinking about right now, for sure. I think like in games have explored it in the past.
Yeah,
it's just we're getting, that game came out quite a few years ago now, I think. So we're coming along now.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's going to be a beneficial thing for the gaming industry?
Well, to the point that I think Max was making, I think that it's a hard subject, and my opinion on it is that hopefully it'll be useful as a tool to accelerate like certain timelines and stuff like that. But hopefully it's not abused to the point where people are really leveraging it to create storylines, character models, drawings, and overall art, artistic aspects of like video games that are, human crafted and have like love put into them by people, and hopefully nobody's like just completely replaced by this. I think it could be used to accelerate people, but I hope it doesn't. I don't think it will be able to replace like the human craft that we have in certain video games. And I think there's a point people like to make a lot about AI, which is about AI can only create things that people have created in the past. It's only capable of creating what humanity has already created. and so it will never be able to create that which isn't already created.
Interesting. Like That's an interesting concept. Yeah.
It can only pull from like pre-existing concepts and like kind of build them together like Legos. But yeah,
that's a pretty good point.
I like to think of that. I wouldn't say I'm super excited over it, but I think there'll be points of games might come out. Like I think this will definitely be a huge thing in the future. I think a lot of weird games, like things that we can't even think of right now, will start to happen. Like for example, nobody really thought about Mario, like the original Mario game, the pixel character. I think it's just called Mario, right? Super Mario?
For the NES?
Mario? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just Mario?
Super Mario Bros.
Or Super Mario Bros, yeah.
Yeah.
And then nowadays there was a guy who came up with like how we have the ability to like connect a bunch of people together as in like an online mode, and then there was like 256 people playing as Mario in one game.
Oh jeez.
It was just absolutely ridiculous, and I think we'll probably see crazy, weird, fun concepts that could even create new genres of games, and I think it could be its own genre. And I think that's the important thing here is that in the future, hopefully it just becomes its own genre, and then we have a clear distinction between, this was AI related, and these are, handcrafted, Final Fantasy VII storyline masterpieces.
That's actually a really great point, Peter. I love the idea of like maybe because it kind of correlates with what I was saying around like I don't feel like AI could be used in that way in like all types of games that have a very like finite structure around them. But if they create like their own genre that's like almost like a sandbox of AI generation within what this game can be, yeah, why not? Like go have fun with it. Let it be what it wants to be. Let it evolve how it decides to evolve. Like that could be a really cool concept. I actually really like that idea.
Thanks. I'll go start working on a game right now.
Go for it.
Yeah, the second we start seeing like small studios though pop up and like plagiarizing, be like, oh yeah, we made this ourselves, and it's like fully AI driven.
Oh yeah, like the Pal World questions people have. Which
I
don't know if those are warranted or not.
I don't know.
Like, yeah, it's to me, I don't think it was anything AI related.
I think it was just heavily influenced. I really, like, we all know it, right? And I think it was just like extremely heavily influenced on not just Pokemon, but like even like some Digimon aspects I see in there of like what some of the pals look like. There's some like little hints of even that. So yeah, I wouldn't say AI. I agree with you on that one. I think it was just outrageously influenced by a lot of things. It really just molded into one.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery. So
yeah,
I think another good example is you guys were talking about Baldur's Gate. So it's Neil Noob. I'm gonna butcher this name, but Newborn. Whoever played Asterion. It's like, he won like tons of awards for his performance, but I don't think AI could have like pulled off the way he brought that character to life.
Yeah.
And other examples like that,
Emotion is a big one. Emotion is definitely a big one for AI that it lacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
Cool. All right. Well, that's AI and gaming. It's a big topic that will probably have a lot of discussion throughout the years across the vast majority of podcasts that exist out here with not even just gaming. I mean, like we really see AI everywhere. We see it at our jobs. We see it in the media. We see it in the schools with kids and copying homework. And yeah, who knows? It'll be interesting to see what we have this conversation in like a year from now of like where AI has come. But yeah, I think anybody else have any like new stuff, or is that all we have? Jumping into what we've been playing.
Yeah, let's jump.
Unless just the announcement of Elden Ring DLC is considered.
Sure. Yeah. Take that one away. Yeah. Peter's the Elden Ring guy. What's going on with Elden Ring there?
Well, it was just announced that the DLC has a release date, and they had like a 1 minute 30-second long video that just felt like a 5 to 10 minute video when you watch it.
Is it gameplay or like a cutscene?
It was gameplay mixed with cutscenes.
Okay, nice.
It was just all straight in-engine footage. So like, it was kind of like in the style of like, really, I mean, as if you're playing the game, and it's just like playing its like daunting music and showing all the new bosses and landscapes and stuff. It really would. Most of the trailer was like showing bosses and like probably like one ability that they have. So it really felt like you were just like in the middle of a fight the whole trailer.
Nice.
But it's coming out the 21st of June.
Okay.
Good time.
So, yeah, super exciting for those who play that.
Yeah, it's good. Midsummer. Kids are off from school. College kids are chilling at home. Or, well, maybe working too, but there's going to be a lot. Summertime is a good time for gaming. That's really nice they have that out. And to have both gameplay and some like cutscene stuff is pretty neat, and all in engine. Is it Unreal? Is that what they made it in? Or do they have their own?
I believe they have their own engine.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure anymore, though. I think all their old games like were definitely on... the one that was on Unreal Engine, I think, was Demon Souls.
Proprietary engine, it just says.
Yeah.
Demon Souls remake was on Unreal Engine for PlayStation 5.
Yeah, that's Blue Point, though. Their whole thing is that they just remake like critically acclaimed games in the best like high fidelity way possible. And Demon Souls does look great, but it's just very polished. It's just yeah,
they call it. It looks like it's called Dandelion.
Huh.
Dandelion is an entirely proprietary engine developed by and for From Software, although it typically makes use of common middleware such as Havok, Fmod, and Bink. The vast majority of its systems and formats are custom-made, undocumented, and unsupported in any existing software. It looks like their in-house engines was developed by themselves and in cooperation with Sony Japan Studios for Bloodborne between 2011 and 2015. And I guess since then they've just been building upon it and like just making their own. So very, very cool.
Nice.
It's
I wanted to bring up... Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. What's up?
Okay. I wanted to bring up one other thing. There is a... I was looking up to see if there's any Unreal Engine related news specifically, and I thought I saw something about like it looks like they're having just a new 5.4 version coming out soon, which they have regular updates, and each one is usually pretty big for people who are like developers, so it's more relevant to them. I thought I heard news of an Unreal Engine 6. But when I went back to check it, I don't see anything.
Definitely not. Unreal Engine 5 is way too new. I don't even think that's even wanting to be talked about yet.
Yeah, but it would be exciting though.
I feel like we still haven't seen that many Unreal Engine 5 games. I feel like
I think there's about 5. There really,
probably
really isn't much at all in the Unreal 5 engine world. Yeah, we're gonna probably see 5 for a good while if I had to guess.
Final Fantasy 7 is making it look very good though.
Is that Unreal Engine 5?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Final Fantasy 7 remake, all of their games are on Unreal.
Yeah. There you go. I just wasn't sure if it was 4 or 5 of Unreal Engine, but that's cool.
Oh yeah, I don't know that either, but yeah.
Yeah, Unreal Engine 4 was released in 2014 of March, and Unreal Engine 5, the latest, was launched April 2022. So I would assume Unreal Engine 6 is kind of some ways off.
Apparently, Kingdom Hearts 4 was confirmed to be using Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is using 4.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I think like 5 could be a little bit more unstable for what they need. I would even
like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised too if the next one's also in 4. Which I don't think anything's wrong with that. I think it's fine to stay. I mean, 4 is going to be around for a while anyways too. That would be my initial thought. But yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. How long has it been out for? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? A month?
No, it's been out
8 months, 2 years and 4 days.
I know, right? It's been out for a full month. Yeah, a full month now. A full month and some change.
Okay.
It's been out. So about 5 to 6 weeks.
Very nice. So yeah, Peter and Max, whoever would want to start first. First question up: how does it compare to the first one, to the Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first game?
Man, that's a great question.
It is a good question.
Do you mind if I go first, Peter?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I think that it blows Remake absolutely out of the freaking water. And I love Remake. Don't get me wrong. Like I loved the world of Remake. I feel like the studio the developer party of Square Enix that is remaking Final Fantasy VII. I think that they should make every Final Fantasy game moving forward. Like they have it down. They understand the magic. Remake for me was a very polished and beautiful experience, but it was a walking corridor, basically. Like, I mean, like the game was fairly short. You could beat it within 35 hours, which makes sense because it all takes place just in one city, the biggest city in the world. But I'm glad that it had its own game for the amount of content it had. But there was a lot in it where I was like, okay, like this just is giving me Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy 16 vibes of this is a very small world, great character and story beats, but the world itself doesn't feel that lived in. It doesn't feel that expanded upon. Outside, like they did a great job of capturing Midgar and the atmosphere, but like the NPC interactions, the areas, they felt a little subpar. Final Fantasy Rebirth was kind of an answer to all of those pain points in my mind. I think it's well above and beyond the better game. The world of it is massive. I've kind of been thinking about this over the last few weeks as I've played it. It's like a mixture of Horizon Zero Dawn meets Final Fantasy, like combat and story. So like it's an open world game, but it's like open world regions where you are following a linear track of its story, and you have areas where it's open and you can very easily take 5 to 6 hours just exploring the open world, finding side quests and points on the map to focus on and complete. And it's all very addicting because you really want to 100% every area as you go. The game is beautiful. I will say that I'm just going to go ahead and get my small nitpicks of the game out of the way because I have very few, and the rest of it is just praises across the board for me. The pop-in for textures in the open world is pretty substantial sometimes. Like, it's a beautiful game, but there is this... you can tell sometimes that it's chugging a little bit to get everything on the screen. It also, Final Fantasy, like Square Enix's engine for Final Fantasy, and I felt this way with 16 as well. There's just this weird look to it where it just looks a little soft. I'm trying to think if that's the right term, but like the graphics just look a little soft to me. Like it's all kind of like slightly, there's like a slight blur to everything, so it's not super crisp. But honestly, like after you play it for a few hours, like you don't really notice it that much anymore until you play something else, and then you're like, whoa, like this looks kind of fuzzy a little bit. But like I said, very minor. Otherwise, the game is absolutely gorgeous. And I would say, just to finalize my answer to your question, Rebirth is far and above the better game. And I'm sure as we go down the questions, I'll delve into that a little bit more. But
yeah, sweet.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, Peter, what about you?
Oh yes, it is amazing, dude. I am so addicted to it, and yeah, the first game was so linear for me. I just felt like being, first time you come out of the door in the first game for the first time and see the city, it was such an epic moment. It kind of really showed off the capability, and walking around the town and everything had its charm, and you're just like, wow, everything's super polished and modern graphics now, but it really, for me, faded off, and I was more playing for the combat in the first game all the way through to the end, and curious about the storyline and everything, since I never played the original, and that's kind of how I expected the next game to be. I just thought it was going to be they had every chance to do the exact same thing, use the same mechanics, and just kind of add new characters and continue the storyline. And they seemed to have improved upon most important aspects of the game, which was incredible. I was even reading the other day that, or watching a video the other day, because I get the feed of Square Enix, and then they were showing off developers and talking about what they did on the game, and some people were saying, like, we even added day and night lighting to the pause menu screen, so that whatever area you're standing in, no matter whether you're out in the open world, inside of a house, or wherever, your characters would be standing in the same position, facing the same direction, and have the same lighting, so it feels more natural whenever you go into the pause menu screen, along with carrying on the music soundtrack that's playing in the background. And there's really the menus and the combat was even improved. The new synergy skills, where you just kind of, instead of, I guess one of my biggest gripes about the original game was that you had to kind of you had the option to rotate between your characters. It kind of felt more like a chore, and I always just wanted to play as Cloud and max everything into his skills, and everybody else was just kind of a side character that got in the way to me. And I would just I would usually only use them if their limits were, or limit breaks were available. But other than that, there wasn't much of a reason for me to try them out. But in the new game, they introduced this amazing synergy skill system where there's probably over 30 different synergy combo ultimates, basically. You can think of them all as ultimate attacks. Yeah. And they all look so amazing and mix between all the different characters. And they look some are hilarious, and some are just way over the top performances that just do a bunch of damage. And so the fights feel a lot more like dances now, kind of a lot of people rave about the Final Fantasy Online combat feeling like a dance and looking beautiful, and it no longer feels as clunky. Sometimes I would be fighting as Cloud in the original game and try to lock onto a character, start to target him as a melee, with my Buster Sword, and then my cloud character would go flying into a wall, like nowhere near where the enemy had landed, and a lot of that I feel like was improved upon. It still happens from time to time, but my biggest gripes, I would say, and there's not many, like Max was saying, is the only thing I really noticed is that in the gold saucer, when you get there, there's some textures that get a little blurry when you get up close to them, which was interesting because I'm starting to wonder if that was like some little strategies they had to do to like make sure the game still runs at whatever frame rate at the last minute, and maybe they just took those sacrifices and said, "Hey, it'll look good at a distance."
Right.
And most everything in the game does. Everything looks beautiful, and it's crazy how far you can see things render in the distance, even when you're in a town up on a cliff and looking down and see just like the whole open world map, and you can even see, you know, interactable things that you can go do. And then the blur thing, I've been noticing that too. When you kind of run around on your chocobos, especially in the open world, I noticed this like race car effect where like if you know what I'm talking about, where like something will go by so fast that you'll see like multiple images of it behind it, and that it's like smearing, and I see that smearing happening quite often. Not to where it's really not taking me out of the game, but when I do notice it, I'm like, I honestly don't even know if it's my TV or the game itself, but it sounds like if you're seeing something similar, it might be the game. But and other than that, I wish they did more improvement upon. They have so many different mechanics in the game that they introduce. It's mind-boggling, and it kind of just like appeals to somebody like me who just loves to do a bunch of different things one after another. And it's just like new minigame, new mechanic, new minigame, new combat, new minigame. And it's staggering how many mechanics they introduced into this game. I mean, they put so many mini games into this game.
23.
I think, yeah, that's like Mario Party levels.
Well, I'm actually glad that you said that, because that's my follow-up question. So there are 23 mini games, and there are a ton of mechanics. As someone who is on the outside looking in, I think that sounds terrible. I think that sounds like way too much. That is like way too many mini games, way too much mechanics. I can't say that makes me want to play this game anymore by reading it. How has you all's experience been with just such a plethora amount of different mechanics and mini games? I mean, can all 23 mini games, do they all seem to be amazing and fun, or is there like 4 that really are the ones that make you want to play, and the other like 19 could have just not been put into the game?
I'll let you go first this time, Peter.
That's another good question. There are quite a few that are pretty fun for me, and what's weird about them is that some of the ones that are really fun, they only have a small section of that game. Like, you can always go back and replay them if you like go and travel back to visit places that you've been. But there was so many times I just like played a mini game and I was like, oh man, that was really fun, and you just finish like the 3 difficulty levels that they have for it, and then never again. You just don't, and you're just like, it feels like they spent so much time making that, like so much. Because they really do seem pretty well built and thought through, and like, but nope, they just keep introducing more and more. And so I would say, I mean, I wish that they created some like standalone games off of some of these mini games, like particularly their card game. And I've heard mixed things from different people. Some people just aren't into the card thing, which I imagine was the same thing that people thought about Gwent. But I love the card game like a lot. Every new town I go to, I just see all the people that have the card game and want to try to beat them. And I have this just really fun strategy. There's so many cards to collect. And yeah, I guess ultimately I wish they took some of the stuff that they built and just kind of carried it through the game and kept improving on it. It's weird to have like one thing after another, where they're just like fun one-time happenings, and then you never see anything about that again. The only thing that kind of sticks consistently through the game is your combat and how you improve at that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I will kind of play devil's advocate a little bit to that. But I am very much of the kind of person that loves the random assortment of mini games. Like, honestly, the way that Final Fantasy Rebirth does it, honestly, going towards another series that I really love, the Yakuza series, which is in some ways all mini games, like everything that Sega's ever done, basically. Rebirth kind of does that for me, and the way I see it, this game for me is just pure joy. Like, it's just like, I constantly am having a smile put on my face every time you reach a new town. It's like you're throwing a party with all the people in that town. Like, you're just excited to be there and experience this new location and its magic. And yeah, there's mini games where you're like riding a dolphin to reach a power plant ahead of you, and if you don't hit enough beach balls, Mr. Dolphin's really sad and he won't be able to push you up.
It's quite literally Wave Racer.
Like, yeah, it's like a Wave Racer. There's a bike mini game. There's the Queen's Blood, which to me is like the next Gwent. Like, this card game is addicting. It's really, really fun. I could see it totally a solo spin-off of it being released because it's that detailed. I would say that the majority of the 23 minigames are within the Gold Saucer, which is this location in the game that I would say, unlike any other game I've ever played, made me feel like I was in Disney World. Like, literally, like, you would just go to different sections of the Gold Saucer and it would just be 3 or 4 mini games in this area of like, you've reached the space the space section of Gold Saucer. Play Galactica, play this mini game. I love getting those new mini game experiences because, to Peter's point, they are kind of one and done. You can experience them. They're not that hard to understand. They're actually fairly easy, but it's different. It's a different thing that you're experiencing outside of the norm of the game. That's just kind of fun to break up, the repetitive. I don't want to say it negatively, but the repetitiveness of the world exploring of the open world areas, because there are set things there pretty much from the beginning of the game where it's like, okay, every region has these 5 specific world interaction pieces that you need to collect. And it never gets old for me anyway, but like, it's all fairly the same throughout the entire game. So these mini games all being different is actually a breath of fresh air for me because it allows me to have a new experience. There are, to your question of, are there some mini games that you wish were not there? Very few, but there are 3 specifically that come to mind as I did not enjoy playing them. One of those being the Moogle hunt, like just like having to, basically you had to like round up all these like Moogle kids and they're throwing like bombs and wind tornadoes at you and it's super annoying. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't love this. The other one is this Cactar mini game where you have to like fight these like Cactar opponents to like raise points. That was super difficult for me. And then the worst one of them all, which honestly, in comparison to all the other mini games I've played so far, the difficulty spike came out of nowhere, is this gym mini game where you have to do crunches and you have to like press buttons in like a certain rhythm. And the first two ranks are like, oh, this isn't that bad. I only have to do like 20 to 25 crunches. Like, your opponent has like a cap of how many crunches they are actually able to do in the 90 seconds that you're in this mini game. So you know that if you reach a certain number, you will always win because they can't surpass their allotted number. So So like rank 1 is 20, rank 2 is 25, rank 3 is 51. You have to get 51 crunches in this like.
And I've heard you have to get 52 to guarantee it, because sometimes he's randomly programmed to get 51. Sometimes he gets 50, but sometimes he'll go to 51. And so you might have the off chance.
It was awful. Like, I probably spent 30 minutes on that mini game because me as a completionist, I was like, I'm not leaving until I get the final rank of this thing, and then I never have to do it again. That one I was like, that can go die
straight
in a fire.
To jail. Straight. Yeah. Whoever put that in the game.
But the rest of it is just amazing. Like, I love all the different mini games and stuff.
And then even on top of that, that game was in the first game too. So that was like totally uncalled for to bring it back.
Although nobody
from the first game was like, that's what I want in the second game. That particular game, bring it back. Yes.
In the first game it was pull-ups. Second game it was crunches. Watching the third game, it's gonna be like push-ups or something like that.
No, please.
But
yeah, very good. Yeah, I as someone who never really cared about mini games in a game, I usually get pretty bored with them. So I feel like I don't think it would be enough to like want to pull me in. I think I get to points in games where I'm just like waiting for them to finally be over, especially if they're long. So interesting to hear though. That is a lot of mini games, but glad that it does break up some things. It sounds like they are fun for the most part. So for characters, who is your favorite character? Brief description of why, and who is your least favorite character? And brief description why.
Oh man, that's tough.
Oh, that is.
It's really tough because y'all know that for me, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time. I find that, and I'm talking about the original, but honestly, the remakes have expanded upon that experience for me in a way that I can never describe probably accurately. This is a character game. This is a game that loves its characters. The developers love these characters. They give each of them their time to shine. I never thought I would say this, and I'm shocked that I am, but I love that I am. Barrett is my favorite character of the group. And honestly, in the original Final Fantasy VII, he would probably be at the lowest rank for me, or one of the lower ranks. Like, he was in the original game, you had no voice acting, but Barrett he was cool. He had a gun on his arm, but he was just the hothead who was, constantly cursing and like telling people why, we have to fight Shinra and stuff like that. And he's still that person in Final Fantasy Remake and Rebirth, but they've given him this amazing nuance. The voice actor for Barrett, I would be incredibly disappointed if he doesn't get nominated for an actor role in the upcoming Game Awards. The nuance that the voice actor brings to Barrett is unreal. Barrett as a character kind of carries this weight around of he blames himself for so many things that are happening in this game's story. And I think what Rebirth does so beautifully, and it's my favorite story beat so far in the game, is there's a moment where you go to his hometown and you see what's happened to his hometown and how not only does he blame himself, but the whole city, the whole town kind of puts that on him, on his shoulders, of he's the one that did this to them. That the events that take place in Remake in Midgar with Sector 7, it's almost like he's repeating history in a way. And you see that weight on him. He's always kind of the most grouchy character, but it's because he's so sad. Like, he's just like, I feel like he constantly feels like he's failing his friends, his family, and creating casualties for what he states is for the betterment of the planet. And in the game, there is this beautiful moment between him and his best friend that I won't go into, but it's my favorite moment in the game so far, and it brought me to tears. And I was just like, this is unbelievable how they were able to make me feel so much for this character, and he is now like my MVP. Lee's favorite character, not surprisingly for me, is probably Cloud. Cloud is the main character, but he's also kind of just this stoic, too cool for school, angst boy.
He's kind of whiny.
He's whiny. He's constantly saying insensitive things like, I love Tifa and Aerith, but I'm just like, really? Y'all are in love with this guy? Like, this guy's like, he's not the greatest. Don't get me wrong, Cloud's a great character, but like compared to everyone else in the ensemble, he's definitely the worst out of all.
He's the worst.
How about you, Peter?
Oh man, yeah, Cloud's my least favorite. I'll start with that since you just said it. He just makes me mad every single time he talks. He has, Tifa and Aerith just like around him all the time, just like with so much character development poured into and not just them, Barrett, and just like anything that they say has so much like thought put into it and character development. And then he'll just like say something that just sounds like he hasn't even been a part of them, like a part of their journey or a part of anything. He's just so, and also just knowing his past, knowing the previous games, growing up with Crisis Core and stuff. I know a lot of people might not have played that, and so things like that might not be relevant to them. But he's just. I don't know. He just always seems like a wannabe and doesn't really deserve how much like angst he has for like what happened to him. I feel like for example, Barrett went through way more.
Way worse.
I feel like Cloud's journey was just really like a really small moment in his life that he treats as like something that was way more time or like way more that he went through. But I guess to my not knowing, I don't really know the whole storyline yet, and so I'm learning more about like what happened in Cloud's childhood. I don't know anything about that really yet fully, so maybe it'll happen to turn my opinion around upon finishing the game. But as of right now, being pretty far in the game, he still isn't the best. He's just the worst like, at every turn. My favorite character is turning out to be Red so far. I feel like for me, my favorite character keeps turning into whatever the next plot development is for like revealing the backstories of characters. I also just like really like Red's gameplay. Like I thought I would really hate him in trying to like use his abilities, but that combined with when I learned about his backstory and how he turned out to be as a character, he's just becoming my favorite character to keep in my party and to play as. And he's such a unit. He has so much like of all attributes. It's like crazy how I feel like they almost made him a little overpowered as a character.
Strong attack, strong magic,
strong defense, like
strong defense,
huge
super
health, and he regains health from attacks. Crazy, and
he's kind of OP.
I am starting to like Tifa a lot more. I'm just now getting into her like depth as a character. I just hit Nibelheim, and that's where like a lot of Cloud Tifa highlights I'm sure are gonna take place. And so I don't know if my opinion will change on favorite yet. It is pretty cool to see kind of where Tifa's going as a character, and I'm kind of looking at it as like, honestly, I don't like the concept because it has like the whole idea of like who's gonna romance Cloud, and I don't like either of them. Like it just doesn't feel like right to choose either of them. I wish there was like an option for them to just like not be with him, honestly, and just everybody just go on their own way.
Is there not? Can you not just not be with anybody?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
I would assume there's probably got to be something to make you not choose either.
You can.
Yeah.
There is a relationship mechanic in the game, like there was in the original, and you can romance Aerith and Tifa, but you could also romance Yuffie, or you can romance none of them and just build your biggest partnership with Red or Barrett or Sid or Kate Sith, or Vincent. Like so, you can kind of move away from that.
Did not know that. I have a close second for not liking a character, and that's Yuffie, because she ends up becoming like Tyler, like that Final Fantasy 13 character that was that kid or whatever. He was always so. I think we didn't. He was just annoying, and I kind of get those same vibes from Yuffie, but she's also just like.
Yeah, she was annoying in Kingdom Hearts, bro.
Yuffie's definitely the Yuffie was in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. All the Final Fantasy characters.
I was just about to say, she's like the Donald of Kingdom Hearts, or like the Goofy and the Donald that just like constantly says like things in the background that are just like the same repetitive things. Like I've got to find materia, or just like
I find it so endearing. I love Yuffie, man.
The voice actor's great, but like she is, she has great gameplay as a character, but she is annoying as a character to me. She was, there's a lot of other characters I really love that I can't really say because that would be spoilers for you, Max. There is one that particularly comes to mind that I don't think you've gotten there yet, so I'm not going to say it. But that kind of also like made it kind of blew my mind a little bit that they included this one person. So I'm excited to see what you think about that, Max.
I will say, as an aside, my favorite Final Fantasy character is Leon, Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh,
like he's the greatest of all time in the Final Fantasy universe. Which I don't play too many of them, but Final Fantasy VIII was cool. Leon's awesome.
Talk about another sad boy, Leon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he's the OG sad boy in my mind in the Final Fantasy realm.
Hey, I mean, with how successful the remake of 7 is, I would love for them to remake Final Fantasy 8.
Yeah,
that would be
cool. All right, well, to kind of wrap it up, if you could give a title to your article of this game to help summarize or sell or do whatever you need to do, what would you summarize Final Fantasy Rebirth as in, I don't know, let's say 15 words or less? We could take some time. Take some time to like mold on it a little bit. Because it's a big ask, but the reason why I ask is, you kind of have like your, what's your elevator speech to kind of sell yourself. It's kind of like the same concept. What is the title of the article that you would give your Final Fantasy Rebirth overview as?
Final Fantasy Rebirth is one of the greatest remakes of an already declared masterpiece video game.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Going second is such a such a hard follow-up to that. Mine was kind of goofy. It was just like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like flying, swimming, grappling, mini games.
Hey, I mean, that's fine.
Every single thing you can possibly think of, we've got it in that game. I guarantee it.
I thought you were about to sing the Stamp song. Bow, wow, wow, bow.
No, and the other reason why I asked is just to kind of, see like how you guys are feeling. I mean, you can kind of tell, how you're feeling about a game based on like if you had to like title a news article based off of it, right? I mean, like you said, it's a masterpiece of something that's already a masterpiece, and some might think, oh yeah, of course it'd be a masterpiece because it already was one. No, not always the case at all. To be able to create something that is in a different reason why it's a masterpiece to something that already was a masterpiece, that is a feat that is not small and probably would not be replicated in our time for quite some while now.
That is the perfect way to put it, Tyler. And honestly, it is all because the developers of these games truly love the original Final Fantasy VII. There are so many callbacks to that I am catching as someone who played the original Final Fantasy VII, where I'm like, wow, they put in that NPC interaction. Wow, they took a scene where a kid kicked a ball at Red 13 and he launched it into the ocean and they turned it into a giant mini game. Like, this is a game that celebrates everything Final Fantasy, and it's wacky and it makes zero sense, but it's just pure joy. The whole game is just pure joy.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope this isn't a spoiler, but for you, Max, particularly. But I think it was something I missed, but apparently, and it's kind of weird, but it is showing like the level of detail they get into. But apparently, there's like a little Easter egg where you can take, you can take photos in the game and stuff, and they like kind of incorporate it into a mini game. And apparently, you can just like point your camera at Aerith. I think at any given time, unless it's a specific instance, but I read that if you take a picture of her when she's like not looking, there's like a special interaction where she'll be like, what the heck are you doing? You know, that type of thing, which is just weird, but it's like that, like they added a lot to the game.
Yeah. I love that.
And yeah, the whole lighting in the menu thing blew my mind. Like the people talking about that. I didn't even notice it, but I was like, these menus, sometimes I just sit on the menus in the game and I'll just like chill there and just like relax for like the longest time while the music's playing and I'm like, and all the characters are just standing in the menu screen. It's like such a relaxing thing that they added.
I love it.
Very good. Sounds like Final Fantasy Rebirth is definitely living up to all the things that it has. If you are a PS5 owner, you could play Final Fantasy Rebirth now. Is Final Fantasy VII Remake, is that on PC now? So Rebirth will eventually. Okay, so in about like 5 years, maybe Rebirth will be on PC or something. Who knows? But yeah, if you have a PS5 now, jump on it. Final Fantasy VII is really good. It is Calling All Nerds approved as an amazing S-tier game for sure. All right, well, to wrap things up on my end, Dragons Dogma 2 is the new game that Capcom released to I actually don't even know Dragon Dogma 1's like review of like how well it did. I think it's really good. I think it got like maybe some 9s out of 10s, I would assume, out there somewhere. Dragon's Dogma 1 did.
Yeah, I think so.
Dragon's Dogma 2, new game that came out on March 21st for PS5, Series X, Series S, and of course PC. I will say, if you are actively looking at reviews of it right now on 4/8/2024, Steam has a ton of review bombs for the game, and it is primarily because of microtransactions. There are some performance issues that also does exist in the game, but I will say that reading through a lot of the reviews that I was seeing out there, it is a ton about just like the microtransactions and things like that. So to, I guess, like briefly talk about my experience with Dragon's Dogma 2, I will say that overall, I think the game's great. I think it is a really fun experience. I am playing it on the Xbox Series X, which was a decision that I did make even after hearing that the console versions of the game perform worse than the PC versions. The PC versions sounded like you needed some pretty hefty cards in order to be able to run. I think it is a pretty CPU demanding game, if I'm not mistaken, and a lot of like the new like 4080s and 4090s that like streamers and stuff get, like that's what they were playing off of. Those were like barely getting like the 60 frames and whatnot. And there's like issues in the cities because there's too many NPCs and all this kind of jazz. But even with all that knowledge, I chose Xbox because I figured that if anything's going to get updated down the road, it is going to be this game. then it's probably going to be easier for me to play Dragons Dogma on an Xbox than it would be on my PC. My PC is a 30 series card and like an 8 series CPU of Intel, which is like, I don't even know. I think they're on like 14s now, and I'm on like on an 8, so it's like far behind. I just didn't feel like dealing with it, and I will say that I really think performance is fine. A lot of people get ticked off by non-60 FPS, but in action games like this and console games, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, I've played 30 FPS on consoles I feel like majority of my life, and it runs fine. The issue that I had was motion blur, which they just pushed out an update on the 1st of this month to disable motion blur. It doesn't affect graphics.
Right.
Like the frame rates are still about the same, but the motion blur is gone, which is great. So it makes my combat really fine. A lot of people complained that you couldn't create new characters because like the reason behind it is because in the Dragon Dogma world, you have these pawns, and these pawns exist, and like people can summon the pawns from anybody who's created them. And I think like the whole create a new character thing was to help not have just a plethora amount of pawns in the world. I don't know. That was like what some of the discussion was. They have since made the new one, like the ability to make a new one. You could still only have like one save, kind of like Pokemon. But you can make a new game now if you want to. That also didn't affect me because when I do character creation, I go pretty basic. I don't make my guy look dumb. He doesn't look the coolest. He looks pretty basic. I usually give him a beard. I give him some long hair, and that's all I care about because I'm going to strap a helmet on that guy and never stare at his face again. I don't make his skin green or blue. I don't do anything that makes me regret the kind of character that I look like. Could not care if I could make a new character or not. Doesn't bother me. So I moved on past that one. Also, the coolest thing about Dragon's Dogma is you can constantly change your vocation, which is if you are a mage, a fighter, an archer, a thief, you can change them throughout the game constantly. You don't, if I started with an archer, I don't have to stick with the archer for the rest of the game at all. I can like constantly change. So for me, the idea to make a new game, I didn't really understand why that was such a big deal that people got mad at. I just don't see it. I mean, I still have my same save on Pokemon Emerald since I like first got it. I don't like make new save. It just doesn't, it doesn't affect me. And it's going to affect other people, but they didn't matter to me. These are all like kind of like reasons why I didn't mind, jumping into the game, right? And yeah, like I think the storyline is fun. It's not the most in-depth thing ever, but like it's interesting. It's enjoyable. The side missions are cool. You save kids, do things, and I like the timing aspect of it. If you accept a quest to find old Johnny that got stolen by thieves, well, if you say yes to that quest, the time is now ticking, and if you wait like 5 days, Johnny's dead. So good job, because you accepted a quest that you probably shouldn't have because time moved on. And like I think
like
that
5 in-game hours or
yeah, well, you can like sleep and stuff. So there's like a sleep cycle and things. So like some quests are determined by time. So if the game even tells you, hey, be careful. If you accept too many quests at once, you might get so overwhelmed that like you're going to do one, you're going to go do another. And then like that random side mission that you picked, it's going to keep ticking on along in time. And like that person could just be gone.
Dang.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that aspect is kind of cool. Like there are...
Is there any different type of quests based on whether it's day or night?
Yeah, like there are. I would say like the nighttime is supposed to be the time where all the monsters like the undead come out and the wisps and stuff like that. And like there is one quest in particular where like there's this haunted ox cart that you have to explore, but it only happens at night. Or there's like little like fetch questy kind of style missions where it's like, hey, you need to get this specific item that can only be found from monsters that spawn at night. They're like a little bit stronger too, monsters are and stuff. So I would say they change in some of like the requirements, but like, a fetch quest is still a fetch quest. A travel quest is still a travel quest. So in that essence, no, but like some of the components of it, they do change for sure. I think the pawn system has been improved. One gripe is that your NPCs tell you every second when a ladder appears. It is the most obnoxious thing. You are walking around and this person is just like, oh, there's a ladder. We should climb it and see where it goes. And you're like, no, I've already climbed it. It goes nowhere. Please stop telling me. There's little issues like that get kind of annoying. But in a way, it's goofy. Like, I don't think Dragons Dogma 2 is a game that's meant to be taken so seriously.
Is it kind of like when in Fallout New Vegas when you used to play with Boone, Tyler?
Honestly, it is. Like, it feels like those characters that are just kind of like doing whatever and they have repetitive dialogue. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, they're just kind of goofy. Sometimes you'll do this like epic battle and then they just sit there with their palm up and you're supposed to walk over to them and like give them a high five and they're like, yeah, you did great, bro. And then if you don't, they just stand there with their hand up and I could just stare at them and be like, I'm not giving you a high five, and just walk away. And it's just funny. Like, I don't know. You just don't take it seriously. You know, you just enjoy it. And like funny. My pawn, I created my wife, Julie, in it. And you may not know anything about Julie. She is a 5'4" beast of a person who is super sensitive and wouldn't hurt a fly. So naturally, I made her the tank of the class. So she carries this big old shield and this huge sword. She's like 6'7", and she just jumps on monsters and like beats the crap out of them. It's the greatest experience for me because I just love the total mental picture of Julie becoming the opposite of who she is in real. It's the greatest thing ever. And when she wants to high five, I always high five her back. But the the storyline, it's cool. I think it is engaging enough to where I'm having a good time. There's like a lot of fun like upgrades, trying to find like new weapons and new armors. And I just maxed out the archer class. So now it's like, okay, I want to go on to the next one. And like, I want to max out that class and like see what it's like.
How is the maxing of a class? Do you get like a really cool skill by the end of max?
I just reached max archery like 2 days ago, and I haven't played since. So I haven't. The way that you like upgrade and stuff, you go to an inn, and that's where you like kind of configure your character. So I haven't been to an inn since, or sorry, you go to the vocation area. I haven't been to one since to see if there's anything new. I'm hoping there's like a new skill that I have unlocked. So yeah, we'll see about that. But I mean, generally speaking, when you are leveling up, there are like some skills and like sub skills that you do acquire like throughout doing it. And you also like, there's, I want to say 3 or 4 new vocations to Dragons Dogma 2 that weren't in 1. There's like a spear fighter guy, which my friend was telling me was really fun. They brought Magic Archer back, but it is now a subclass of Archer, which Archer and Thief used to be the same in Dragon's Dogma 1. Used to be a thief who just had like a bow as his secondary or his or her secondary weapon. They have now split those, so a thief is a thief and an archer is an archer. And there is a thief, like another thief's vocation. I can't remember what it is. It looked really cool though. And then fighter still has the 2-handed weapon person. The magician still has the sorcerer. There's the new spear one, magic archer. And then there is actually one now that they have that allows you to kind of be a jack of all trades, a master of none. And you can be every vocation at once. It is the only class that you can wield a bow, a sword, a shield, a staff, a great sword, a spear. You could do it all, but I guess you don't necessarily get like, the level 10 skill of the bow. You maybe get like the level 5 skill. So there's like a lot to like explore in that aspect, which I think is really fun. The fantasy part is cool. There's like little, like I said, quirky things that I think make the game like fun and entertaining. There's like a really cool elvish race that exists in the game where if you actually don't have a pawn in your party that can speak elvish, you don't even know what they're saying. You could just talk to them and it's just gibberish.
That's cool.
Yeah, like I knew I wanted to, because I'm the archer, I knew I wanted to go there because they have archery related quests there. And I was like, man, I got to find someone who speaks it. I'm just traveling around the world. And quite literally, someone walked up to me because pawns will just roam the world freely. A magician pawn randomly came up to me and she goes, "Hello, Arisen. I speak Elvish and it would be great in your party." And I was like, yes, I needed you. So I brought her in, and now I can like hear what the Elvish people actually are like saying in like their dialogue and stuff, which I think is kind of cool. And like other ones have like other little like perks to them. Things like some pawns will like scavenge for you. Some of them will create potions for you and distribute them amongst like your party and stuff. And some pawns, like if you maybe hire, let's say Peter had put 300 hours into the game and completed the game, I could hire his pawn and it actually will have quest knowledge to where if I do a quest and I'm having a hard time, I can look at that pawn, or like the pawn will say something like, "Oh, I know where we should actually go for this because my, I forget what they call their like leader, but it's like my leader had done this and I'll like show you where to go. Do you want to follow me?" And you could sit yes, and you could follow that person along the path of where the quest is needing to be.
Well, that is cool.
Yeah, it can be kind of helpful because some of the quests don't really give you too much to go off of. Sometimes the quests really do just say, find out why. And that's like kind of all they give you. So it can be kind of helpful for some of it. And you can also actively see your borrowed pawns learning from you. Like you might discover a chest in the world and that pawn will say like, "Wow, this is something that like my leader missed. I'm going to have to remember this and bring that information back to them." So I think that's like kind of interesting too. It feels in an odd way that this game is pretty alive for the most part. So it just like makes it fun. And I don't even know if all that works. Maybe it doesn't, but like, I don't know. It feels like it does, right? Like it makes me feel like, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, this pawn's going to take this knowledge back to so-and-so, and like, I don't know. It's just like a cool concept that I really like for the game. Yeah, sure. They have the stupid, annoying, repetitive dialogue, but again, it's not a game that you take too seriously. You just have fun with it.
I'm going to have to remind my owner that, that there's a ladder over there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What are they? That sounds weird to call it owner. What are they?
I can't remember.
I had one question for you, Tyler. I mean, you pretty much covered the majority of what I wanted to ask, but from what I've heard from reviews as well as other people that have played the game, like they stated that the difficulty of the game is fairly like that. The game seems very unforgiving. Would you say that the game's like difficulty is fairly high, or as someone who is a veteran of the first Dragons Dogma, did it feel very familiar and it wasn't too difficult to jump into in Dragons Dogma?
When your vocation level is pretty low, I will say, for any hot tip for anybody who is playing the game, pick Archer and get explosive arrows with the explosive skill. That thing dominates. I like 3-shot a griffin in the face with that. I think I found a very exploited and OP class. So not, disregarding that, right? Yeah, it can be very difficult. It's not Monster Hunter level of like how long it's going to take you to like fight a boss. But bosses do have like weak spots. And you also can like, you can travel anywhere in this game. I mean, there are some limits because like some places to enter have like passes that you need like a transcript to be able to access the new area. But like you can get off the beaten path very easily. And there are some high level bosses that if you are just like a little level 4 and you come across like this big ogre or whatnot, and it's nighttime and so he's even more powerful, it can be very hard, especially because like I can see like where maybe like frames can frustrate a lot of people. If you're trying to like hit the eye spot of a Cyclops and it's kind of jittery, I can see where that'd be like a pain. Or if you are, the game is very dark. I don't mean from like a lightness and dark. I mean like physically, it is a dark game. Like it's meant to be dark because when you travel at night, you're just given a lantern to light the way. And if you don't have that lantern on, you won't see anything. And so it does make it difficult in that aspect. I only just now started finally feeling like I could actually travel the world because my archery class is at max. I bought this like 45,000 gold like bow kind of thing. I found out explosive arrows are kind of overpowered. And so like it's a little bit easier now, but it took a while. Like I started out as a two-handed person and I just felt like it was too slow. I was like, man, this combat is crazy. I get one swing in, and if I miss, I have like a horde of goblins, like quite literally just like 6 of them will jump on top of you. And as someone who has played like adventure style games in the past, sometimes even like in Dark Souls or something, you might think like, let me just run far enough away and like I'll kind of be outside of the bounds of like where they can go. I don't know what the bounds are set on this one, but they will chase you. I remember thinking like in the beginning, like I just got to get to where I need to go. And I'm like dodging and dodging and dodging, we're running. And I turn around and there's quite literally like 30 monsters chasing after us. And I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore. I was like, I don't have any healing things. And like, yeah, so it is very hard at some points. And if the game gives you a lot of campsites to kind of rest and heal up. But there's some areas where you can get lost and you might not find a campsite right away. And your character, the way they do their health in this one is it's stamina based. So you'll have full health, but if you take big damage, your max health is now only that far up. So even when you heal, you're only going to get at most that much. And you say you may take more big damage. And if you've been in fight after fight after fight, your max health could be like that small. And like that's all you got until you rest up next. So sometimes managing that can be a little difficult because you play it and you want to do the next quest. You want to see like, oh, what's that next cave going to take me to? But then you notice like, oh man, my health isn't that high anymore. Will I be able to survive doing that next excursion? I don't know.
Is the rest system, is it anything like, is there anything to it other than just going and sleeping, or do they have like cool interactions with like bars and stuff? Or,
yeah.
So bartenders or whatever you call them.
At the ends, there's not too many interactions. In the exploration world, you do have to clear the campsite prior of all monsters, or else when you camp, you have a percentage chance of getting attacked in the middle of the night. There are different campsite gear levels to like, some have like more protection than others. But yeah, like sometimes, in the beginning of the game, you find a campsite, you're like, oh, I want to rest. I only have your basic level 1 camping gear. I got to clear out all these monsters now before I can even start resting. Because if I don't, they're going to probably kill me in the middle of the night. So that part can be annoying. And then, there are some like small little mini interactions. Like when you sit at your campsite, you can sit on a log and you could just stare at the open flame and your characters are sitting there and you can kind of like, I guess take in the scenery. You can cook meat, which is it's very odd. They have real life footage of a cast iron skillet sitting on top of an open flame with a real piece of meat being cooked in the skillet.
You sure they didn't just accidentally put the reference videos into the game?
Dude, yeah, like it is real life footage of meat being cooked in a skillet that is like a random cutscene that you can watch.
Does it like take you out of the immersion? Like, is it actually in like a kitchen, like with a chef?
No, it's still outside, though. It's just weird because it takes up the whole screen. It is just a zoomed in look of here's a skillet, there's a flame, and here's your meat just searing. It is super random.
Well, that's kind of cool.
It is cool, and it gives you, your strength and endurance buff and stuff. Oh yeah, and like I want to say there's like 3 different meats that can be shown. There's like a lamb chop and like a thing of beef and like something else. Yeah, but that's as much as far as like interactions go. As far as like sleeping, there isn't too many kind of like chatting with people interactions. There's a decent amount of quests. There's a decent amount of like quest triggers to like get you into things. But yeah, it's not the most in depth of like, you'll just like see characters like messing around with each other, or like chatting with each other all that much. Yeah. So not too much of that happens, but it's still, it's fun. It is a good game. And I think that, Capcom made a statement talking about how like they know that it needs to be improved graphically, and they are going to have like future updates for the console version and the PC version to make it run better. Like I said, if you do look at reviews though, a lot of it is review bombed. And I think the final topic I'll just say is the microtransactions. I think it sucks that people just have microtransactions in general in video games. And the microtransactions in Dragons Dogma 2, they are all items that can be attained in the game normally. It is kind of weird. It's weird because like the microtransactions are like, hey, here's a teleport stone. Like, do you want to pay 10,000 in-game gold, or do you want to give us like $2 or like $1.50 to just like have it yourself? And like, I, as someone who is trying to play video games a little bit less, just because they have taken a lot of my time, and I feel like there's some personal reasons of why I'm trying to like work on some other things in my life outside of video games. And I think with that aspect, I can see someone who maybe just doesn't have the time to put in a lot of effort to certain things, and maybe they're also conveniently blessed with like the funds to be able to do so. And maybe they're just like, yeah, bro, I'll give you guys $50 to give me a bunch of teleporting stones, because I don't want to keep running around all over the place, right? Hey, that gets them the money. I get it. I don't think we're going to ever get away from these microtransactions. They just are what they are. And like, I think Dragon's Dogma 2 has them, and I think people are buying them that obviously aren't talking, because they're also the people who probably don't care to put a review on a game, and they haven't taken them off. So I can only assume it's been making them some money, right? And it just kind of is what it is. I think at the end of the day, like, a lot of people will say like, this is terrible for single player games. Single player games should never have microtransactions. This is going to hurt the industry. This is where everything starts going downhill. It's like, look, microtransactions have been out here for a long time. And if they think that Dragon's Dogma 2 is this catalyst for all this stuff, that can be their opinion, so be it. I disagree with that a lot. I don't think that the fact that Dragon's Dogma 2 having microtransactions is changing anything that was already going to happen with microtransactions. And I am someone who says, look, if you don't want them, just don't buy them. I'm thankful that it is items that can be obtained in the game. My opinion would probably be different if they were things that couldn't be. Like if they were like, maybe, hey, give us this amount of money and we will give you a super OP weapon that could never be obtained in the game. Like, yeah, this would be a different discussion. But as it is right now, it is items that you can get yourself. It doesn't take that much gameplay to get a lot of money. I mean, I get plenty of money to do plenty of things in the game, and all the things that you can buy with like real world money. I don't think it's worth it, but maybe that's just the way that somebody wants to play it, you know, and that's fine. So I will say take those reviews with a grain of salt. Read them for their depth of what they are. A lot of them are just games suck or this trash, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. So I think maybe, you know, if you are someone who is sitting here and you're like, oh, they talked about 2 games, Final Fantasy VII is probably the one more worth your full price than Dragons Dogma 2 would be. But if you're thinking about it and maybe it goes on sale for like $20 off or something, I think it'd be money well spent. If you're into like fantasy action RPG stuff, it's really enjoyable. It is a cool game. And yeah, I think we'll just leave it at that one.
Cool. Nice. I like it.
All right. Well, I think we have hit all of our topics for the day, and we're actually coming up on the 2-hour mark for this podcast. So I think we will probably be wrapping it up here because it is. Oh yeah, it's getting nice and late on this fun Monday morning or Monday evening.
There's one more pressing piece of news. Did you guys hear about the Discord loot boxes that came out?
We don't need to talk about that.
April Fools.
Oh,
no, one
geez.
thing about that actually happened though, which was kind of funny, was apparently somebody posted a video of like announcing that from Discord's headquarters, and it went on YouTube, and it broke the YouTube record for the most amount of views on a video ever, like above, or most amount of views in a short amount of time, like above all the things that you can remember, like Gangnam Style, T-Series, whatever else. Like it has, I just randomly saw it the other day and it was like 1.4 billion views.
Dang.
And it was out for a day, one day.
That's crazy.
And I was like, and apparently it's because it got posted on the homepage or something on autoplay. So every viewer to the website gave it a view multiple times.
Oh my
god.
God.
And somebody said somebody's gonna get either a big raise or get fired over it.
Oh jeez.
Oh my gosh.
And that's now broken the YouTube record.
Man.
Very nice. Sounds like some pretty good news. Well, cool. If there is nothing else from my friends and I think we're going to wrap up this podcast. This was another Nerd Alert podcast. We said number 23. We'll see if we're right. That'll be very interesting to see if we got that number
I'm pretty
right.
sure it's 25.
It's probably like 85. Come on, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But that was another Nerd Alert podcast. Thank you all for tuning in and for listening or watching on Spotify and YouTube. Like I said in the beginning, make sure to give us the thumbs ups or likes or 5 stars and, you know, drop reviews, drop feedback. It does help us. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten too much yet, and that's fine. You know, we're always open to whatever feedback there may be. But until next time, that is it for us. We'll catch you all later.
Take it.
Peace.